Hello everyone, my name is Infinity and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course the law of attraction. If you've been following my recent posts, the two other videos I posted today, I did a Divine Love Twin Flame reading video and also a video on Twin Flame separation. But regardless of whether you are a twin flame or not, I found a theme, a collective theme emerging that I feel reflects something we are collectively experiencing at this time on the planet. And this is ego death. Now, of course, ego death can happen in many different parts and at many different times and stages. It doesn't necessarily happen just once along our spiritual awakening journey. It can happen many, many times. The reason for this is because very often as we are spiritually awakening, we must move through different phases or layers of ourselves, of our lives, of our healing. And I often speak on soul intentions, the fact that we created intentions for our lives on a soul level prior to incarnating here on this planet. And many of these intentions, if you are connecting with me with my energy, I am sure that for you, many of these intentions you set for yourself are connected to your spiritual awakening path. So, what do I mean by ego death? Many of us are familiar with this term, but I understand this period of time to be a time during which we are purging, releasing everything both within us and externally in our lives that is not in alignment with our true soul path, our true authentic self, meaning who we are at the core of our soul. Oftentimes, even pieces of our personality, even things we thought were hobbies, things we thought we enjoyed, begin to come into question as we are initiated onto this path of spiritual awakening in this life. This is because societal unconscious programming runs so deep. Our subconscious minds are so deeply programmed, and from such a young age, that much of what we take on as our own, even our personality, what we believe to be character traits about ourselves, what we believe to be our hobbies, our interests, what we think we want to do when we're older, so much of this is energetically absorbed from a broken society and into our subconscious mind. So what begins to happen is, from a young age, we begin to form what we call the ego, the perception of self. And this ego exists for a reason. We are here on this planet to live a human experience, to build a human life, to have a concept of individuality, a concept of self. And this ego allows us to create a strong sense of individuality, a strong sense of self. However, the problem is we live in a society that really values a dominant ego and a very weak, authentic self. We strongly value in our society individualism to the point of disconnection, both from our true self within and even from others. We place value societally on getting a sense of pride and a sense of self from what we do rather than from simply who we are. And because of this, over time, the ego begins to be fed through positive attention from others, fed through superficial relationships, fed through whatever we conceptualize as material success, either at work or financially or socially, whatever it may be. And as the ego is fed, it becomes stronger and stronger. Rather than having an ego that is checked, that is able to cooperate with our true authentic self, that we are able to control is kind of a strong word, but that we're able to keep in check. Our ego begins to control us. We are controlled by this insatiable need to be perceived in a certain light, in a certain way by other people, to be defined in a certain way by our physical accomplishments in this world. And the ego, as it begins to take on this mind of its own and this dominant role within us, begins to create structures in our life that are often a very far cry from what we truly want and desire for ourselves in our lives. We begin to choose career paths that aren't at all aligned with our true interests or soul core values, but bring us that sense of pride and value that are rooted in this dominant ego. We may choose a partner who feeds our ego. We may choose to live in a location that causes our ego to feel stronger. And before we know it, we are now entrenched in these many different places, relationships, career paths, life paths that are so out of alignment with who we truly are and who we came here to be. Now, at this point in our life, we begin to go through this spiritual awakening. We are quite literally shaken awake. We are unplugged from this matrix we created for ourselves through these ego-based structures in our lives. And we realize nothing is as I intended it to be or wanted it to be on a soul level. We realize so much of my life is not what I came here to be, to do, or to create. And this instantaneously sets up a feeling of intense pain and disconnect, because we realize just how disconnected we truly are from who we came here to be, from who we truly are at the core. So, spiritual awakening happens very energetically. Usually even there is a trigger moment for many that causes or ignites this spiritual awakening, either by meeting a kind of soul connection, whether it's a twin flame or a very high level soulmate, someone who stirs within us that remembrance of who we are, who energetically causes us to begin to raise our vibration very, very fast. That is the key here with spiritual awakening. What's essentially happening is there's either an external experience or an internal experience that causes us to have an influx of energy through our being that raises our vibration very, very quickly. This is also often why people will often experience a very strange, sudden shift in vibration that causes them to have some kind of esoteric, strange, fifth dimensional, unexplainable experience that usually happens at the beginning of this so-called spiritual awakening process. But anyway, that energy then settles into our being and now must work through, again, all of those blocks we talked about earlier within the subconscious mind that then reflect in the energy. All of those blocks that were created by society and perpetuated by ego, by our own ego, that now must come down. And as this happens, we come into greater and greater alignment into our true soul self. We raise our vibration higher and higher. And the higher we raise our vibration, the less we are capable of tolerating out of alignment vibrations, lower vibrations, negative vibrations. Whereas before we had this spiritual awakening, we existed predominantly in low vibrations. So we were able to feed our ego, to live in these low vibrational relationships, jobs, places. It didn't affect us as deeply because it actually resonated with where we were. We were on this lower vibrational existence. Well, now through our spiritual awakening, our vibration is raising so radically, we suddenly cannot tolerate those low vibrational experiences and structures in our lives that we created to continue feeding our ego. So those things begin to crumble. If we don't leave the job, we lose it. If we don't end the relationship, that person breaks up with us. And this is simply because these things are no longer in alignment with who we are becoming, with this higher vibration we are now moving into. So if we don't cut these things off ourselves, and very often we don't because we're afraid, because we're still holding on through ego, this is why so often it feels like our lives begin to fall apart. Nothing is truly falling apart. It is that we have built so many of these low vibrational connections, structures in our lives, whether it's a job, a place we live, a home, a dynamic in our family, whatever it is. We built these things from a low vibrational space and for the purpose of feeding our ego. But these things were never who we truly came here to be. They were never truly us at the core. They were never truly aligned with our highest path. So as these things begin to fall apart, we call it an ego death. And what we really mean is we are in this higher vibrational state. Therefore, these low vibrational experiences, people, places, jobs, etc., are now falling away out of our lives. They are no longer capable of being sustained within our lives. However, these things fed our ego. So now our ego is cut off from its food source. It is no longer able to feed off of those structures, and it begins to become aware of its own demise. It begins to realize that it is being cut off, that it is taking a back seat, that it is dying. This is also why during this time, despite feeling higher vibrationally speaking, feeling this high vibrational energy moving through us, feeling bouts of joy, connection, and authenticity like we have never felt before, we may also, at the same time, experience periods of very deep and intense sadness, loneliness, grief. What we are grieving is that version of ourselves we built through ego that was never truly us, but that we became so attached to from our physical mindset through our physical lifetime. In order to release all of these ego-based structures, relationships, things in our life, it is so vitally important that we truly center ourselves on who we are at the core, not who someone else told us to be, not what we chose to become so we could get that sense of pride and validation from others, but who we truly are at the core, our own inner voice, which so many of us have lost along the way through growing up, being raised in, living in this broken society. But we are here to take back our power, to reconnect with who we truly are at the core, to begin to exude that authentic energy, that radiant, magnetic energy that can only come when we release all of those structures built through ego, both within us and in our lives. For the purpose of doing this, I have created a 7-chakra clearing subliminal meditation. This subliminal contains 7 binaural beat frequencies, each resonating with one of the 7 chakras in the energy body. And this is so powerful because sound therapy is a tool we can use to literally activate our chakra centers to their highest vibrational state. And in doing this, clear out any residual negative energies, return ourselves to our naturally intuitive, magnetic, fully aligned state of being. I personally listen to this chakra clearing subliminal every single morning to stabilize myself energetically, to ground myself, to allow myself to raise my energy to my highest vibrational state so I'm capable of manifesting the life of my dreams. This subliminal comes from my website, soundandsoulful.com, where I've created over 100 subliminals for all areas of life. So as you can see on the screen, I have subliminals for physical appearance changes, for love and relationships, for mood shifts like confidence and happiness, for material manifestations like money and success. So to explore this chakra clearing subliminal specifically, you can click the link in the pinned comment or the description box under this video. You can trial any subliminal I've created completely free for 7 days when you create a free trial account on my website. Thank you so much again for sharing this time and space with me, for co-creating these videos along with me. If I resonate with you, please do subscribe to this channel, join our community of like-minded, conscious, creative beings here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram at Magnetize Yourself, where I post high vibrational content to keep your vibration up all day long. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful, magical rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again in the next podcast.